This lesson will focus on understanding the author's purpose. There are lots of reasons why authors write. Some write to tell a story or for entertainment. Some write to explain how to do something. For example, directions that you may get that explain how to put together a chair. Some authors write to persuade you to believe as they do or to act in a certain way. Others will write to describe an object, process, or place. And finally, some authors write just to express feelings. We're going to focus right now on persuasive writing. Persuasive writing is writing that states the opinion of the writer and attempts to influence or convince the audience. You might think of persuasive writing as informational writing with an attitude. It's intended to convince the reader that a certain point of view is the right one to have, or that some action should be taken. Let's focus now on narrative writing. Narrative writing tells a story. Creative narrative writing has a plot, setting, and characters who have motives for what they do. Good narrative writing also has tension, a problem to be solved or a challenge to overcome. In other words, there's a point to the story. There's also a type of narrative writing that's called non-fictional narrative writing, and it's often used to recount a person's life story, some important historical events, or even news stories. And this is the type of narrative writing that our author uses. So let's look specifically at the last lecture. At its core, it is an advice book, and that means that it is persuasive writing. Even though it seems to be narrative and informative at times, the most important thing to remember is that it is intended to be a persuasive work. So the author uses the narrative form, he tells stories, and he does give you information about certain aspects of his life. But the book is intended to persuade you that if you live your life a certain way, if you raise your children a certain way, if you go about your career a certain way, then you will have positive results. Now, why is it important to understand when an author is attempting to persuade you of something? Well, think of it this way. If you're watching a commercial, you know they're trying to get you to buy their product. And so you know that you should watch the commercial with a critical eye. The same is true when you're reading persuasive writing. If you know that the author's purpose is to persuade, then you want to make sure that you're reading with a critical eye and you're asking yourself, what is it the author is trying to get me to do or believe? And keep that in mind from this point on as you read the last lecture. This is meant to be a persuasive book. It is an advice book. And so ask yourself, what is it the author is trying to get me to believe or to do?